In our last video, you saw us arrive in France and spend some time in Brittany at afternoon permaculture, visiting some of the local sites and seeing old friends. You left us about to head southeast past Nantes and to the Royal Abbey de Fontevraud, which I'd wanted to see for years. The main entrance to the abbey is in the centre of Fontevraud, off the Place des Plantagenets. The abbey itself is one of the largest surviving monastic cities from the Middle Ages and is situated where the three French regions of Poitou, Anjou and Touraine meet. It has been listed as an historic monument since 1840 and as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2000 as part of the Loire Valley. So here we are. I'm talking quite quietly, I hope you can hear me, but this is not a place to be shouting aloud. We're at the Abbey de Fontevraud. It's really quite stunning. He always needs to wave. So we're sat here in the gardens at Fontevraud Abbey. Probably to give you a bit more information and background about the place is that it's an abbey that was founded by Robert Arbrissel back in 1100 and something. It was the favourite place of Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was a great benefactor and arranged for her own burial here as well as that of her husband Henry II of England. Richard the Lionheart is buried here as well as Isabel of Angoulême, who was the wife of King John, so it's got a huge amount of relevance for the English. It was converted to become a prison in about 1840 and then converted back in about 1904 there onwards, and now has been completely restored. Just behind me there's some of the buildings, and sat round here you've got fountains and what have you, but it's not really a place you can sit and do much in the way of videos because it's so quiet and peaceful and respectful. You don't really want to wander around with a selfie stick or a phone gabbling away to yourself, so you've taken 5 here just to sit down for 5 minutes and roast in the sunshine as you do. You've had an enjoyable day today?
Yes, an enjoyable day.
Good
Restful.
fun. Bit of a drive to get here, and then tonight we're off down to Limoges and to see some old friends. So see you later on the tour. Yeah, this is the chateau. The Abbey cloister, like many found in British cathedrals, is a quadrangle made up of 4 galleries, and the one at Fontevraud is one of the largest we'd seen. Off the east side of the cloister is the chapter house, a meeting room for the chapter of the Abbey, where the walls are beautifully painted with 16th century paintings depicting the Passion of Christ. Amusingly, the paintings have been subjected to a form of graffiti, as the nuns and abbesses have over the years been incongruously adding their own portraits to these sacred works of art. I suppose you could say it's possibly the first form of Photoshop that you'll ever see. Outside were hanging 4 replica medieval bells in brass and bronze. The first 3 bells came from the chateau de Tiffauges, and the idea behind it was to enable them to show how the bells looked and were hung in a kind of deconstructed way, and also to allow children to ring them using mallets, which we couldn't find. The 4th bell was called Aliénor, or Eleanor, and was the new bell for the Abbey of Fontevraud and was created for the festival of Easter. One of the things we'd hoped to see here on visiting was the old kitchens, but unfortunately, as you can see, they're rather shrouded in scaffolding and netting, and they were quite spectacular apparently. When you look at the pictures, looking outside the abbey. The Byzantine kitchens are actually a smokehouse where fish, mostly salmon, which was then abundant in the Loire, was prepared. It was the main part of the nuns' diet, Fontevraud smoked salmon, a feast for women living in abstinence. Our visit to the Abbey over, we headed south once more past Poitiers and on to Limoges to stay in what was possibly the worst motel we've ever had to endure. It was the lowest budget accommodation we could find. Knowing we were going to be arriving too late for a campsite setup and trying to do this trip on a shoestring budget, it was full of transient workers. We did not feel safe and managed to get a fitful night's sleep. The next morning we were up and at it early, needless to say, and after a quick cuppa and a pastry at the nearest cafe, we headed into the middle of Limoges. This was almost home territory for me. Having lived in the region for 3 years, it was lovely to be back, but as a tourist for a change. When you visit Limoges, you have to go to the infamous Butcher's Quarter with its ancient buildings, and Limoges is filled with delightful delicatessens, with treats to tempt you. The Maison du Fromage looked particularly enticing, but we were strong and walked away. We also paid a visit to the Roman Catholic Cathedral in Limoges, an eclectic building built over 600 years in Gothic, Renaissance and Romanesque styles, which from one aspect make the building look incredibly modern and almost Spartan, yet from another side it's a beautiful Gothic edifice. The ceiling inside is beautiful, being painted shades of deep blue and gold stars. Day 5 and we are in Limoges. I think we're in the Jardin de l'Evêché at the moment, just by the cathedral. And it's really sunny, properly bright sky. We've walked down the Butcher's Quarter, but again there's far too many people around for us to actually do much in the way of a video. It's certainly been a nice visit today, and at the moment we're just by the fountains, which I'm sure you can hear just behind me with Mr. Morty. And the fountains actually dance. Well, I wouldn't call it dancing, but they keep changing their programming. Before it doesn't change, huh? While we were in the Butcher's Quarter, we found a shop called Feu et Flamme, which is fire and flame in English. And the lady there was fluent in English, properly, even said bloody nuisance about the weather and insisted on talking to us in English, but it was a really interesting conversation about glass and firing glass and doing pottery. But unfortunately I didn't take any pictures inside the shop, but we did make a purchase, as you do. I've got a photograph of outside, so if I can work out how to slot a picture into this video, I will. Later on today we plan on going to the campsite, putting our tent up for a couple of days, and then I'm not sure what we were going to do this afternoon, but I'm sure it'll come to me. I think we're going to take the Richard the Lionheart route and go for a drive through the countryside, go and have a look at all the different castles that have anything to do with Richard Coeur de Lion and John Lapland, as per yesterday's visit to Eleanor of Aquitaine's resting place. Well, I'll just leave you to the views. And there's the cathedral behind that amazing building. We left Limoges after lunch and headed for Camping Park Verger at Champagnac-la-Rivière, where we set up our tent. We then took a drive over to Chateau so I could show David the outside of the chateau where Richard the Lionheart was fatally wounded by a crossbowman during the siege there in late March or early April 1199 prior to his death at Chateau Montbrun on April the 6th as a result of a wound infection. Little did we know that there would be a surprise in store for us when we arrived.
Okay, I had to film this. I'm well out of breath. So I lived for 3 years here in France, in this beautiful region that you see. And the Chateau Chabron was not open at all for 3 years. Or if it was, we missed all the opening dates. And finally, we've stopped here en route to see friends of ours. And the gates were open, and they were open, and apparently they have recently changed hands. And the new owners are so determined to actually renovate and bring this back up to the standard for a monumental piece of architecture in the south of France that they've written to the Queen to tell them of their intention. And there's a letter downstairs in the main salle from Buckingham Palace thanking them for writing. So the reason I'm out of breath is right in the middle of Chateau Chabron is the donjon, the keep, and it's open and you can climb to the top. And I have been in a lot of castles and I have climbed a lot of towers, as has Mr. Morty, and I don't think I've been up any that have had so little attention to health and safety or have had such narrow and decrepit stairs, nor have I passed crow's nests on my way before. I'll try and get a couple of pictures on my way back down. It's very dark, there's not even any lighting on the stairs, it's pitch black. But oh my god, it's worth it for the views. And if I just up here, you can see behind me, that's the top, complete with Richard's flag. So yeah, so completely worthwhile. And if I just tip us down here, you can see some of the works that are going on. They're renewing the ornamental gardens completely. That's the main house with another tower on it. This is where the box office entry was, just down there, a little shack, even complete with somewhere to get yourself a drink. There's a fountain there that will be up and running. And I think you can just about see from there, I've got to be careful holding my phone now, I don't drop it, the ruins of the castle, not castle,
Church.
the ruins of the church, where the remains of Richard the Lionheart's bowels are supposedly buried. Now, Fontevraud Abbey also says that they've got the entrails, but here says that the rest of the body went to Fontevraud, the entrails remained here, and his heart went to the cathedral at Rouen. So, wow.
It is truly wow.
It's properly wow. And this is actually the whole town of Chateau. And we're headed off, I think, over that way shortly. We're going that way, down to Bussière-Galon and Ladignac-Lalande to go and visit friends. Once we've got back down safely, let's just see. Oh, some lizards knocking around as well. But this.
There's a tree growing in there.
It probably was.
It's probably called in the castle.
Let me just, why can't I rotate it? I
You
don't
go
know.
first. You
But-
follow me.
That's where we've just come up from. And at the bottom there is a crow's nest. Off you go.
On your head.
I will.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Once we'd made it safely back down to ground level, we visited friends who lived locally. Afterwards, on our way back to the campsite, we swung past Chateau Montbrun. This was the last castle to remain loyal to Richard the Lionheart, and it was here that he died on April the 6th, 1199. The castle is privately owned, and last we heard, it was on the market for a cool 13 million euros. We also passed by the Grand Puiconneau, a lookout point over the Limousin, and watched the setting sun. The next afternoon, we took in a visit to the open-air museum and ruined village of Oradour-sur-Glane. And I won't say much about it here, other than that it was the site of war crimes on 10th June 1944, when the SS came through and killed 642 men, women and children for no universally accepted reason. There is plenty of information online if you'd like to find out more, but I can recommend a visit here if you're ever in the area. As we drove back to the campsite, I took David on a tour of where I used to live, including my old house, and we stopped off to visit various friends along the way. One of them lived in Saint-Laurent-sur-Gorre, and we stopped just on the off chance of seeing her. It turned out to be more of a reunion than expected, as other friends were also visiting her, and they had taken on my cat when I left France in 2006. They took us back to theirs, as the cat was still alive. And when we met up, he just about remembered me. It was a fitting end to a couple of days of reminiscing, and so ended the second part of our trip. Join us on our next video as we travel across France and into Italy, ready for the Palio di Bellestra in Gubbio. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and ring that bell if you want to be notified when the next video is up. See ya!